again, I want to remind people that Trustee Taylor will not be here. He is excused. Before we go into the Gould Park thing, I just want to read a statement. So, at a meeting held on December 13th, 2022, the Board of Trustees voted to permit cannabis dispensaries in Dobbs Ferry. This vote was subject to permissive referendum. This meant that the issue could be subject to a village-wide vote if a timely petition containing the proper number of signatures by voters registered in Dobbs Ferry was timely submitted to the village clerk. A petition was submitted to the village clerk, and upon review, the village clerk has verified that the proper number of signatures has been submitted. She has informed the County Board of Elections, and the village will now proceed to conduct a special election on the question of whether dispensaries should be permitted in Dobbs Ferry. Next step includes coordination with the Board of Elections regarding particulars of conducting a special election, including the election date and the cost and the procedural details. The Board of Trustees will continue to be transparent in the process of scheduling and conducting the election. More information will follow, so please be sure to check our website and the village newsletter, as well as our Facebook page. And I don't know when this will happen, but we will keep everybody advised. And I think now is the time that people start doing their research. I mean, as trustees, we spend countless hours doing research on the issue. So I urge people to start doing their research. I understand it's an emotional thing, but you should not make a decision based upon your emotions. And I also please want to urge everyone to have respect for everybody else's point of view. Like I said, I know it's an emotional issue. We had a lot of heated meetings here at the public hearing. I just want to make sure, since it's going to be a special election, that again, we have respect for everybody and their point of view. So stay tuned. There will be a special election on the issue. We just have to get information from the Board of Elections on the details of how we're going to do this. I especially want to thank our village clerk, who had to count all the, not only count, she had to verify each signature, that it was properly signed, and there was an address, that they were registered voters. So thank you, Liz, for all the work that you've done, and I'm reluctant to say that you still have a lot more work to go on this, but we appreciate your efforts in that. So that's where we are on the cannabis issue. Let's do the Pledge of Allegiance. I forgot that.
We'll have to say that again afterwards.
I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
So as a carryover from the workshop, we were going to discuss the Gould Park wall. Richard, can you lead us on that?
So I think before I returned to the village, that you appointed a subcommittee to look into the situation at Gould Park with the repairs that were required at the wall, and also to have an opportunity to look at some other opportunities to further develop the park, and also to address some access issues. So this evening, the engineer is here to present, and the subcommittee can present for itself. I will say that this is going to be another significant capital program for the village if you decide to proceed, and clearly the wall does need to be repaired or replaced. Next week, we're going to discuss a myriad of other capital projects. That's why I had originally included it for next week's discussion in that context, but I understand that it's something should be addressed sooner rather than later. So that's why we're here this evening. The engineer is here. I also have some quotes on some management services to manage a project that you might propose, and also quotes for development of plans and bid specs for the ultimate project if and when you decide to proceed. This evening, you're just going to look at the work that's been done so far, the conceptual plan for the park area, as well as the prospective costs. There's no action, quote unquote, to take this evening. However, when and if you decide to move forward with this project, the engineer then has to prepare plans and specs for the bid process, which is, I believe, 10 to 12 weeks out. So it is a good idea to start the conversation this evening sooner rather than later to try to address this issue. So with that, I'll turn it over to the members of the subcommittee, and I think the engineer is here as well to speak to
You
you.
want to hear from Anthony? You want to?
There's just one or two things I want to say just for the board. So this was at another workshop. We talked about this. We looked at a sort of general plan. We talked about some preliminary budget numbers. So what's come up in the interim in working, thinking this through in more detail, working with the landscape architect, are a number of other items that have been added to the project. Those items obviously increase the cost, they increase the scope, they increase the schedule, and we just wanted to come back to the whole board with what we found, what numbers we have, and get some feedback on some of these things that could potentially be, included, taken out of the project. So we're looking at, some, parts of the project, but we know we need to do the drainage, we need to do the sidewalk, we need to do the wall. There are a couple of things that would be, there are a couple of things that we want to discuss. We want everyone else to weigh in on. So that's what.
Good evening, everybody. My name is Anthony Zeno. I work with AI Engineering, Ralph Rockfeld's office. So as Michael just went through, so we've been working on a plan that has evolved, and the scope has gotten larger. So let me just go briefly through the project. So the key component here is a structural issue with the wall. We have a drainage study that we're currently studying, working on now. But this plan calls for new curbing, new sidewalks, collection drainage system that connects into the existing culvert, a set of stairs. We also have a handicap accessible ramp, relocation of the basketball court. We've also included some seat walls, terrace seat walls around the basketball court. I called it a seat wall, but really it's a low retaining wall that will combine with the additional landscaping, block the pool, and level out the slope. The previous consultant developed the basketball court, including some lighting, so that's part of it. So I've shared with the board members the estimate that I've highlighted. When we first started looking at this project without the ramp, you want me to go into the detail of the numbers, or
Sure.
we should just talk in general?
I don't think we have to go through line item budget by budget, but I think that the things that we want to talk about, which are important for the discussion purposes, are moving the court and the addition of the ramp. And so there's two
And
things.
the seating.
And the seating, yeah, I'll get to that, because that's part of the moving the court. So the rationale behind moving the court, and we're rotating at 90 degrees or a little bit less, is that it currently faces east-west, so you can imagine what it's like if you're on the wrong team at the end of the day. You have a disadvantage. So the idea behind rotating it is that it faces north-south. You don't have direct sunlight in one of the team's eyes. And so, in order to do that, we also have to address the grading.
Add something. Another reason that we wanted to move the court was so that it was further away from the 5-year-old playground.
Yeah.
Because, sometimes parents complain about the loudness or the language used on the courts.
So we saw an opportunity to, one, address the grading, because the new court would be sort of tucked into, anyone who's familiar with the park, there's sort of a little hill that goes up from, the main field there to Washington. It sort of slopes, Washington's sloping down a little bit. And so what we're proposing is to sort of cut into the landscape a little bit. We simultaneously create a retaining wall and seating. So there's a kind of amphitheater type seating along the corner of Ashford and Washington. And what's nice about that, and just historically, is it ties back to a time when there was a type of seating like that on the lower field, the football field, sort of on the corner of Maple and Washington. And then as a component of this concept of universal accessibility, we looked at including a ramp from Ashford Avenue that's right next to the stair and would connect Ashford to the main field of the park. Now, it's true that you can walk around the corner and down Ashford, and that's a gentle slope. You can access that with strollers, bikes, wheelchairs, whatever. But there is a sort of prevailing idea that if you're creating one new type of access, that it should accommodate everyone who would potentially use it. So we added the ramp. The ramp has costs associated with it. I think it's $200,000. Is that right? Somewhere in that ballpark?
With the railing and everything associated with grading, about that number.
And by the
Yeah,
way,
'cause
these
it-
aren't estimates. These are, I mean, these aren't like contractor estimates. These are, square footage estimates that engineer does. So more, it could be less.
Plus, adding the ramp requires them to change the original drainage plan because the ramp now will be on top of certain places where they would have had drainage, so it kind of increased costs there as well. So there's lots of added costs from putting the ramp in.
Yeah, also, if we put the ramp in, we really have to do the court, because
Yeah.
then they're too close. And so there, there's a sort of.
Ripple effect.
How much is the basketball court?
Basketball court, based on when the Han Engineering get performed it with the lighting, let's see, I'm looking at my old estimate, because we included terrace in this one. With everything, it's $345,000 and change, with the lighting upgrades, the new court, new surface. So-
And the terracing?
No,
What's that?
that's without the
Not
terrace.
without the terracing.
Without the terracing.
Right.
With the terracing, the basketball court, maybe I should put my glasses, getting over. With the basketball court, with the terracing and additional excavation, it ends up going to like $550, the contingency in there. Lighting needs an upgrade. Not only is it just the lighting, it's bringing additional service, so it's not just, putting up the light pole. They're tall lights, they're meant for, active play, so their footing goes down like, mostly they're piles, but they're like in 15 feet in the ground, so it's not simple, just throw up a Cobra head and we're gonna play basketball. It's specifically for sports, so it's well lit. But that was done with, on engineering, we kind of mimicked it, but I did reach out to the lighting manufacturer, and they updated the estimate, and we're still within that number. But let me point out one thing that you mentioned. So as part of doing the ramp, there's heavy line that you see, there's an existing stormwater that picks up the catch basin here that ties into the existing culvert. So there's 108 linear feet of, now we have to relocate that 24-inch line. So it starts to add up. I think it's like $27,000 by the time you remove it. There was, just kind of created a little bit more work, but it's not, looking at the bigger picture here, by doing the ramp does provide the universal access to all. Because even Washington Avenue, that's not really, it's steeper than 8%. Let's be, yes, you could drive down and park at that one little space, provide handicap access. This would provide anybody, once we do the sidewalk and the curb, you can be able to park on Ashford Avenue, and you can be able to go down that handicap ramp, provides accessibility. But it was important that, and I'm happy that, working with subcommittee, that we spend time, and this plan has evolved. I think it has evolved for a better product. This is something that you would take on, and, you're not gonna be doing a master plan improvements to this project. It's not like you do every 5 years. This is a project that's, the scale of it is significant, but it will address many of the needs of the community comprehensively at one shot. So, but yes, you can remove pieces and not.
It's also the case that they looked at this in terms of the larger drainage study that's going on, and we are assured that we are not going to have to redo any of this once we have the results of the full drainage study around the whole Gould Park area.
Well, but at this rate, the drainage study will be done before construction begins.
Yes.
Jess, you had something?
Yeah, I was just curious, so the basketball court, so separating out, I think we need new sidewalks, we need drainage, and
Right.
I think a staircase and a ramp there. This is my first meeting on this, those all seem like need to haves. As far as the basketball court goes, I think I just heard you say something in the neighborhood of $500,000.
That's with the terracing.
Right, to make this basketball court make sense, and I just don't have the backstory. I was just wondering if any other options, so if literally the only, so what I heard you, Mike and Nicole say, the two issues with the basketball court are, one, when the sun is going down, it's very challenging for one of the teams, and two, some parents of young children have raised concerns about the
Well,
than
those are
was.
two issues, but there's other issues with the basketball court that Kendra's probably better equipped to speak to about the age of it, the flatness or the grading underneath
Yeah.
where it is. It's, you know, so we're gonna have this, basically, if we don't do the basketball court, Upper Gould will be completely renovated for everything, and then we'll have a 30 or 40-year-old basketball
that was my
court. So that's part
Yeah,
of the
it's
reason
been
for
on
the.
the agenda, like, it's been an item that's come up a number of
Right.
times, and we've applied for grants to have the
Yeah.
basketball courts redone. We haven't gotten those grants. There's another issue, that, you know, there's an important tree in the middle of that field. And, yeah, and so, we, you know, it's really the only shade, aside from the umbrellas in the pool, but it's really the only shade in the park right now. And we want, you know, we want to maintain that at all costs. And so if we were to have the stair and the ramp, we would have to move the court, we'd have to rebuild the court anyway. So if you're asking, could it be in a different location? It's very hard because we'd have to move it north, and that would get close to the tree, and then it doesn't address the issue
I
of,
was wondering if it had to be redone. Period.
Oh,
That was my question.
Yeah,
the answer is, you know, have to? No. But I think it's an important part of the park. Like, it's an old court. It's time for an upgrade.
and it's,
You don't have to now, you will have to, and if you have to soon, you may as well do it as part of an overall plan rather than do it, just replace it where it is right now and not get the benefit of all of the
Yeah,
other
that was-
things that go
And
around
It
it.
also doesn't seem like we're gonna get that grant, right, now that we've applied for it multiple
Twice.
times, and it just doesn't, we don't seem to be a candidate. This project doesn't seem to be a candidate for it, so
This
it's not
project
like if
will
we wait
happen
3
at
more
some
years,
point.
we
We
could
may
get the
as well do
county
this.
to fund half of it. It just doesn't seem like it's
Yeah,
happening.
okay.
I know this is, I'm sure this has already been thought of, but the ramp that you're creating, couldn't the current ramp be fixed to make it ADA accessible so everybody could use it, or is that too much?
There's no
ramp.
ramp.
Well, that ramp that, you know what I'm saying by ramp, it's that, it's not a ramp, but can that,
Sidewalk?
you know that thing that goes down and, right? What are you talking, like, right now, there's.
No, that's that goes from the upper field to the
lower,
football field.
Right, so you couldn't use that?
No, because we
So-
want to get, there's another 10-foot
So-
grade elevation
Above
from,
that.
to Ashford.
Okay.
Right, which is
Okay.
the, point. So we have a stair. You remember, there was we have a stair right there.
That used to be, right.
There used to be, it used to be on the other side of
Right.
where the pool is. So that stair is now connecting the height difference
Right.
between Ashford and the basketball court, that upper field. So in order to get from Ashford to that field, you either have to walk all the way around the corner,
Right.
or we introduce the ramp.
And so unless I heard incorrectly, so the basketball court's $500,000 and the ramp is $27,000.
no,
Oh.
that's incorrect.
Oh, okay. Okay, and
incorrect.
personally,
No, that
as
was-
the
that was a
liaison
type.
to the Office for People with Disabilities for the county, I think it's really important that this park that's supposed to be for the use of everyone in the village is completely accessible to everyone in the village, and not that they have to go someplace else to enter the park. So I think in terms of, you know, equity and inclusion, it's very important that the ramp, you know, be there.
Oh, yeah,
I
sure.
don't know anything about basketball.
So
courts,
there's a couple-
That's everybody else.
There's a couple of issues I just want to raise for discussion. I mean, one with the basketball court, I mean, if you go by Gould Park, it's probably the most used rec thing that we have. I mean, adults use it, little kids use it, we use it for our summer rec program for basketball. I mean, it's just, it's a very treasured part, I think, of the village, and it's the only full-size outdoor basketball court that the village has. So it is an important fabric of the village. I get the concept of universal access. We talked about it when we first started discussing this project with the engineers. And originally, we had opted not to have a ramp because of the added expense. And there are 2 other accessible entrances to Gould for people with strollers or handicaps or wheelchairs. It's on Washington, and then, I don't know what the other street's called, that little side street, the end of,
DeVoe.
no, it's at the end of DeVoe. Is that still DeVoe, though?
Yeah.
Anyway, at the end of DeVoe Street, behind the bleachers. By putting that, the ramp in, it forces us to move the basketball court, because we could leave the basketball court where it is, still 300 and change to update it and do all that stuff, even if you left it where it was. And the 550 includes the terracing seating on the grass, which we don't have to do, and we should discuss if these add-ons are things that we think are things that we want to invest the money in, because you're talking about a project that, like you said, it's like a 30, 40, 50-year, hopefully that's what it's going to be. And then it'll be somebody else's problem. So we have to think about whether it makes sense to put a ramp in. How steep is the ramp going to be? Is it going to be something that people with strollers or wheelchairs want to maneuver around? Because is it going to be difficult for them, even though it's
I'm
accessible?
assuming it'll be an
It
ADA,
will be-
It will be ADA.
specified ramp.
One on 12, it'll be 8%.
Sorry.
So what happens is, so we have, see, but essentially there's a ramp that goes down at less than 8.3%. Then you have a landing, then you go down again to another landing. This is flat, and another ramp to a landing, so it's accessible. It's gonna
No, I get that it's accessible, but
It's not-
it's not easy. It's not like, just one little ramp. It's like a steep place. It's got to be curved. It's got to be tiered. That's all I'm saying. It's like some people might prefer just to go in the Washington entrance because it's easier for them. I don't know. These are all discussion points, because adding the ramp adds over $200,000 to this project, and time, and it takes away greenery too. However much, green space is there is going to be gone now. So it's just something to think about. I'm not saying
Yeah,
I'm
it's
in
a-
favor or
it's a real
against it.
issue, and that's why we brought it here for everyone to talk about, because we didn't want to make that decision without everyone's input, that, it's another, I don't know, call it $350,000, I think.
It's actually, between the railing and the concrete ramps, it's about 200, see, 150 for the ramp, and then another railing is another 30, so it's about 200,000. Let me point
But
that
then we
out.
have then there's the drainage issue.
Yeah, how much is all that?
We also, the way we've designed this ramp, we have green, the work landscape architect in the village, we're gonna green this up. Right now, it's a slope, so we're gonna still be able to green it up a little bit. Got green on the top level, we'll do some street trees. There's an opportunity to do some, to make it, to soften that a little bit, work it into that slope.
Yeah, that's why it has that form. I mean, that's not the first iteration. You've gone through several, and that's the one that allows us to get sort of better terracing, allows us to do plantings between those things. I mean, that's another component of this. So included in this budget is a fairly extensive landscaping program, not just, so trees along Ashford, pathways in the park, trees, and other plantings in the pool area to screen from view. We have that like ugly mesh fence that we put up when the pool's open. So there are some other components here.
There's fencing along Ashford Avenue, there's street trees, new curb, new sidewalks. It's comprehensive.
And we don't have to decide tonight. This is just for
Yeah,
us to
just to-
discuss, so
yeah,
that when we
exactly.
come back on January 30th or 31st for our infrastructure discussion, like, we're all better informed rather than hearing it for the first time there.
Anthony, how much total?
I think we go with everything on this plan, the seat wall, the wall that pool, I believe we have shown you here, 1,828,000 and change. That has a contingency in it, that's, what do I like to say? Opinion of probable construction cost. That's our opinion, they're based on a conceptual plan, we have to do detailed design, structural, concrete. It is a 10-foot vertical change from Ashford Avenue down to the lower, let's call it the upper area of the park. But this is complete. We connect the pathways, we have a little lighting in there to get you safe, even for the pedestrians, we have that in the budget. Lighting in the basketball court. As you mentioned, there's a light faint line that you see around the street. The corner of this basketball court, just outside that line, trying to protect the root system. And this also addresses all the, we have some largemouth catch basins here, essentially a culvert, and then we tie into the existing structure. Once the flood study is complete, then we're going to go show something else, but everything that we do here is not going to get impacted by, what we do with the next phase. We're going to get it past all our structures and into the lawn area, and then the flood project will pick up that point from there and take it down to the,
Okay, so it's about $1
Mayor.
million, it's like $1 million to do and you're saying the drainage and the wall.
it's $1 million, well, actually,
Right.
the $1.2 million, okay, to do the ramp, the stairs, the seat wall around what I call this low wall here, so we can do the landscaping to screen that. then so that's like $1,277,000. And then the basketball court, once you add the terracing and the additional excavation and disposal, that brings it up to 5.5, so that gets you to the 1,828. Without the ramp that we talked about earlier, the original plan was about $1.3 million with the basketball. So it is a $500,000 difference, and that really adds up because of, you have about 150 for the actual ramp, then you have railing in there for another 34, so it's about 185 for the ramp and railing. The seating by the pool, it's another 66 with all the grading and that. We also added the umbrellas that we needed for the pool. So what happened was this scope just kept on, let's say, but the village always had intentions to do some of these components, but this really brought it all together. So if they did everything, it's about $1 million.
Okay, so thank you.
So Mayor, if I could be heard, in addition to those items, I had reached out and gotten some indication of how much it would cost to do the preparation of the plans and specs for the project. And a project at this current scope, based on these dollars, would be about $137,000 to prepare the plans. And I would strongly recommend, and a quote for a project manager would be about another $125,000. I strongly recommend that because
When you say project manager, you mean a professional that is separate from the engineering company?
it is the engineering company.
Oh, so
Yeah.
it's Anthony
Right.
doing construction administration?
Right.
Or someone in,
Full-time inspector.
We have a contract with them, and these are the terms based on the rates and whatnot, on the size of the project. So I
you
would,
think we need a full-time on-site person?
if I could just be heard on that, based
Yeah,
on,
yeah.
based on my experience with the capital projects here, I would strongly recommend having a full-time project manager. I think you're going to spend a couple of more bucks up front, but you're going to save money at the end by not going over budget and having control over the project. No
It's
capital,
unorthodox
no
to have
capital
full-time.
project, no capital project should go over budget.
But when you say full-time, you mean that there's someone full-time doing contract administration, or someone in addition to someone doing that? So you have someone in your office doing submittals and site visits and, that sort of thing, but then you would, in addition to that, have a full-time person on site? That will.
Well, I mean, they aren't there every moment of the day, but they're there routinely. They're professionals. They know what they're looking at. They know what they should be finding. And it's just in a project of this scope and this complexity, I would highly recommend it. And you're actually fortunate to have consultants that are highly professional, and we're happy to have them here, honestly. So based on I've done with so many capital projects, $15, $18 million firehouses. Capital projects should not go over budget, and they should not be out of control. So you're going to pay $125,000 at this rate, or if it's $1 million project, you'll spend $75,000. But you're going to pay a couple of bucks up front. You're going to save on the tail end. The project is going to be completed, and it's going to be overseen by a professional. And that's just a recommendation. You don't have to do it, but then you better designate who you think is going to oversee this project, who has the capability to do that.
Okay, so we're going to add this to when we look at the capital projects. Now we know what we're looking at and how much we're involved, so.
Could I have one more bit of input? So Jeff, we spoke, it was probably a couple months ago now, about, do we have time to get into some funding questions, or we want to save that for 31st?
You could ask him now.
Jeff, you're here, so we talked a little bit about how this could be funded. Could you share with the rest of the board what we talked about with Nicole, myself, and you, when we had that call about some sources of
Sure,
funding
yeah.
for this project?
Yeah, like we talked about, you can use fund balance if you chose to. In addition to, that's not going to pay for the whole project if we're talking $2 million.
There was some funds for the
yeah, hold on a
hurricane.
second. But yeah, hold on a second. I just want to say something with the fund balance. You got to be careful with the fund balance. It's very easy to deplete it. It's not as easy to build it back up. So, and we're sitting in a very good financial condition right now. So most likely you're going to look at bonding of the project of this size. Or, or maybe not the whole thing, but certainly a good chunk of it.
Okay, and then when we decide on what capital projects we want to do for the following, next year or this year, you would advise us probably to bundle it into we could put it all out for bond, right?
So, yeah, I don't think I don't think you have to have them all like ready to roll immediately. Um, but at the end of it, you're going to want to bundle it into one financing, one bond. You may have to be a bond anticipation note, which is a temporary financing for a couple of years. But in the end, you're going to want it as one bond, as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah, okay. So then we can go further with that until January 31st and give you the top 5 items. Let's say it costs $10 million. You tell us we can bond it, go from there, right? That type of situation?
Correct.
Okay. Anything else while Anthony's here? Okay, thank you, Anthony.
See you next week.
Thanks, Anthony.
Thanks, Anthony.
Thank you.
No, I know there are people here, so before I go into executive session, let me just do appointments. So, I'd like to, have actually, it's an appointment, but I need a motion for this. So is there a motion to appoint David Eklund as a volunteer firefighter for the Dobbs Surrey Fire Department? Trustee Galen, second. Trustee Sullivan, all in favor? We thank him for volunteering, and we appreciate it. We're also going to appoint Jonathan Cannett and Katie Cannett as junior firefighters, and we appreciate their interest in joining the fire department, and we look forward to them moving up from the juniors up to the full-fledged volunteers. So thank you, and we appreciate everything that they're going to do for us and as we do for the fire department. So thank you. I also need a motion to appoint Ally Moss as a member of the nominating committee for a term of 1 year. Is there a motion? Trustee Rosenberg, second. Trustee Rosen Asher, all in favor? That passes 6-0. And it's a mayor's appointment, so I'm going to announce the appointment of Matthew DiStefano as member of the Ad hoc Beautification Committee for a term of 1 year, as recommended by the nominating committee. So thank you, everybody, for volunteering, and we appreciate it. I now need a motion to go into executive session. So is there a motion? Trustee Galen, second. Trustee Sullivan, all in favor. We're going to go into executive session. We'll be back as soon as we can. Thank you for your patience. Let's go. I got paper. Yeah, we go back there. Yeah.
45-year village resident. So tonight, we're just kind of talking about a couple of things with the Dobbs Ferry Police and the Dobbs Ferry PBA. Over the last 18 months, I should say, we received some awards and some things going on due to COVID, due to like Zoom meetings. We weren't able to get these presentations in and these awards in. So I just wanted to list a couple of things that we were doing, positive things that we were doing in the community that happened over the last 18 months. Just a little bit about us, because not everybody knows about the Dobbs Ferry PBA and the police are two different things. The Dobbs Ferry PBA is 26 members committed to a strong partnership with the community, whose mission is to keep the community safe. We pledge to work with the village to provide the best possible service while maintaining a positive relationship with everyone in Dobbs Ferry. A couple of highlight things we do: we work with the seniors down at the Embassy Club with Abby. We have a high school senior scholarship awards. We do a Thanksgiving drive. We work with the Holiday Hustle in our with our Christmas and the Holiday Toy Drive. We thank the mayor and Nicole Sullivan and Trustee Patino, and Trustee Taylor was there as well. The Holiday Hustle was our 10th one. The mayor's been there from the beginning, so I think Nicole was also.
Still owe me a shirt from this
The
year.
difference is Nicole runs and I
Yeah, so
Mike
and
rides on a motorcycle.
yeah, Mike rides a motorcycle. We
So we're
appreciate it. It was
cooler
our
than you, that's what
largest.
you're saying.
Yeah, so, things like that we do, and we appreciate you guys helping out. It was our largest one this year. I got a bunch of shirts for everybody. I know people are asking about the shirts, so I have all different sizes for everybody. If you don't have the size you need, we could replace that. So those are a couple of things we do. Over the past 18 months, we want to honor the men and women of this department that went above and beyond to exhibit diligence, intuition, and skill during their performance of routine duties. And a couple of things we do, people always ask, like, how busy is Dobbs Ferry, what goes on? Just a little thing about us here, calls for service. We do about approximately 12,000 calls for service. That means anything from people calling about a car accident, fire alarms, medicals, disputes, anything like that. That's a call for service. We do approximately 12,000 of those. Criminal cases, we do 739 criminal cases. Criminal cases are anything like burglary, assaults, stolen vehicles, stuff like that, larcenies. So we do 739, and we have approximately 237 arrests. Those numbers are kind of arbitrary, but if you compare us to the neighboring villages, Ardsley, Hastings, and Irvington combined, they do about 500, they're even in about calls for service, but they do about 500 criminal cases. We're up like 40%, almost 40% in criminal cases in Dobbs Ferry. And arrests, we do 237 arrests, and combined Hastings, Ardsley, and Irvington, they have approximately 170 arrests. So people always ask how busy we are. We're approximately 30 to 40% busier than the surrounding jurisdictions combined. We're doing it with 26 officers. The surrounding jurisdictions have approximately 20 plus officers, so they're doing the same work with like 40%. We're doing about 40% more. So a couple highlights on this year. I just wanted to list a couple of the awards we've received. I sent that in a packet, and I'm not going to list out all the breakdown of the awards. I just want to list some of the names and acknowledge these officers that receive awards. Awards that usually come through the Westchester PBA, the Westchester County Department of Public Safety, the Dobbs Ferry PBA. So some of the awards we received were the Citation Exceptional Merit, Class B, that was Detective Hennessy, Detective G, Lieutenant Colvin, Citation of Meritorious Service, Class C, that was Sergeant DiPaolo, Theo Derevjnik, Detective Hennessy, and Detective G. Citation of Honorable Service Medal was Lieutenant Coster when he was here, and Detective Colpa. And we had some life-saving awards. We go to a lot of medical calls, and that's a big thing. We make sure we're there for people in need throughout the village. We had Sergeant Colvin at the time, P.O. Posnick, P.O. Betts, P.O. Robert Marin, P.O. Amanda Stroba, P.O. Dylan Lazan, and P.O. Andre de Jesus. So those are a couple of awards. One of the big awards I just wanted to, well, not a big award, but it was a Purple Heart Award. Thankfully, we don't get those many in Dobbs Ferry. Purple Heart Award was for law enforcement. Award is presented to an officer who has been injured, wounded, or killed in the line of duty. Richard Zakovich, Sergeant Zakovich, received that award from the Westchester PBA on May 20th, 2021, at approximately 1:26 p.m. Sergeant Zakovich was working a traffic detail on Beacon Hill Drive. Without warning, Sergeant Zakovich was attacked with a knife. He was stabbed in the head, causing a large laceration and a large amount of blood loss. Sergeant Zakovich was able to get a radio transmission to headquarters and provide a description of the suspect. One of the Con Ed workers applied pressure and rendered medical aid to Sergeant Zakovich. As workers were rendering aid to Sergeant Zakovich, one of the construction crew, Danella construction crew, ran the suspect down, still armed with a knife. They were able to prevent him from going further and by tackling him to the ground. Detective G simultaneously arrived on scene and was able to secure the suspect without further incident. So Sergeant Zakovich was awarded one of the only Purple Heart awards in Westchester this year. So, it was nice for them to honor him, and they honored all the, they gave civilian awards to the construction workers and the Con Ed workers there. So it was a nice moment. Rich actually left early at the presentation, but those are some of the pictures from the presentation. Up to the left was a couple officers that did a life-saving award. The female in that picture on the upper left-hand side, she was trapped in a car on the Sawmill Parkway during the floods, and those two officers were able to get her, retrieve her out of her sunroof out of her vehicle and bring her to safety. So that was it was a nice moment with the father of the daughter and the daughter there. One of the last awards, that was a department award that we received. It was the COVID-19 Citation Award. It was to police officers for their selfless service and dedication to duty during the COVID-19 pandemic. With the fear of being exposed to possible risk of infection, they went to work every day knowing that they would risk their health and their lives to protect their community. The officers worked extended hours and often went beyond the call of duty to keep the village of Dobbs-Ferry safe. The challenges they faced were immense. The impact on their family and loved ones were significant. We acknowledge the dedication of the officers who provided essential and critical services to protect the lives of the officers during the pandemic. These individuals were not only exposed repeatedly to this danger, but performed admirably and courageously while doing so. So that was a full department award that was awarded to all officers throughout the county, and that was for the officers in Dobbs-Ferry. So those were the awards for 2000, basically 21 to 22. We're going to have another award ceremony probably in May during Police Week for anything new that happened over the course of the past year. So that's it. We got some shirts for you. We appreciate everything you guys do for us and support us out there, and that's pretty much it.
Well, Justin, we certainly appreciate you coming down, making the presentation, and we certainly appreciate all of the first responders, especially our police department, for everything they do every day. They put their lives on the line for us, and we appreciate everything that you guys do. So thank you very much, and look forward to working together going forward. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Board. Appreciate it. I'll leave these shirts over here for you guys.
Okay, thank you, Justin. Let's move on. I'm going to go to courtesy of the floor. Is anybody here for courtesy of the floor? Go ahead, Dave.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I am the David Koenigsberg, the Dobbs-Ferry Village Justice. I did want to, can't really say much. I'm not supposed to say nice things about the police because I'm supposed to be neutral. I could just say that we were a very busy court as a result of how busy they are. We were very busy. They said they had 260 arrests in 2022. I did at least 55 off-hour arraignments at all hours of the day and night. So it's a very busy police department. And apropos of that, I did want the public to know that we've had some very good court clerks over the years. However, due to a bunch of different circumstances, after Friday, you're not going to have a full-time court clerk. I'm working hard to find replacements. So the court will have limited hours for the next few weeks until we can get it staffed up again. But we've identified some candidates, and hopefully we'll be able to do. But I'm going to do my best to try to make sure the court continues to function. But I just want the public to understand if they come and knock on the door and no one's there, because we're very limited on staff at the moment. So thanks very much. I appreciate the board's help and consideration in that regard.
Okay, thank you. Anybody else?
I'm James Kyberd from 70 Clinton Avenue. When my wife and I moved to our current address in 1987, our clunky house was gray and white and covered with heavy fire escapes, metal fire escapes. We let the house and the neighborhood teach us what ultimately it wanted to be. As we watched progress at 12 Clinton, we realized that there was a designer who could help us create our house. The original 1860s Queen Anne Victorian had been remodeled, you know that term? Remodeled. In 1880, carpenters who were building 54 Clinton, next door, were hired to destroy the beautiful wraparound porch and attach a bulky octagonal American shingle-style tower. We needed to create access to the landscape around the house, to enliven the life flow in the house from servant-based to social and family engagement. We sought to find a way to restore the magic and whimsy of the Queen Anne energy while providing safe egress and traffic through the spaces. Hence the American shingle-style tower, capped with the Queen Anne finial, with a widow walk access rising up out of a repetition of octagonal decks. As we began our remodeling, our carpenter, the famous Scotty McBride, discovered that based on the nailing pattern and structure of our Yankee gutters, he certified this was the work of the carpenters who had fabricated the Octagon House in Irvington. All this to evidence that we have invested immensely and cared immensely about the creation of 70 Clinton. Our vigorous participation in the Village Vision Plan brought great satisfaction when the MDHR zone was established. With the clear zoning we could live with supporting the historical character, we felt our investment had been secured into the future. Then, only because I happened to be present for the confusion and contradiction where I witnessed flying waivers, variances, and exemptions screamed out over the intercom at the first presentation of the 54 Clinton project next door to me at 70, did I learn that the zoning regulations had been arbitrarily changed in MDRH without any consultation or notice to the 7, count them, only 7 properties. The sneaky sliding scale turns out it had oozed into existence in July of 21 under a little COVID cover. And as I had just the year before had a real estate assessment of what was possible to create on my property, the MDRH zone, I called with knives out to find out what was going on. I was told there would be a 40% decrease in what could be created on my property. And my advisor said he was on it. A white paper, I believe 34 pages on the mistake was generated. It was brought to your attention and to the planning board's attention. I brought it up at every planning board meeting until the final approval of 54.
James, you're over 3 minutes, but you're going to wrap it up soon?
Yep.
Okay.
A total of 2.5 intense hours. I explained that the sneaky sliding scale, to best salvage my investment, my best choice is to subdivide my property so that I can then create without the arbitrary 40%, and then tear the structures that exist there now down. Planning board's ultimate response to this discussion over many, many meetings was, yes, Mr. Kyberd, you are correct, but how are we going to fix it? They looked to their lawyer who said it needs to be done by the village board. But since there are no applications current and there are only 2 properties that could possibly be impacted, there is not going to be a priority on this matter. But we will get to it.
I don't want to
okay?
cut you off,
Okay.
but you're over 4 minutes, so I think you sent an email, you sent 2 emails about this situation recently, right?
I've got 2 sentences left.
Okay.
34 Clinton has been purchased, and the sliding scale restrictions are forcing the designers to cannibalize the existing beautifully sited historic home to become a mere decoration on an apartment building that will squat and intrude uncomfortably on Clinton in defiance of the vision plan. Please notify the designers they are not under the restrictions, as the sliding scale will be rescinded.
Thank you. Thanks.
No comments?
No. We don't make comments.
Okay.
Here's something?
Actually, wasn't planning to talk about that, but I will, just a sec. The main reason I'm here is, we had a meeting of the people who are on the Ferry Festa Committee, a couple of weeks ago. Oh, Chief isn't here. And we actually had a lot of questions. And I'm thinking what would be good for us to do is to, if we could, have a workshop, at some point, a 15-minute at that, so that we could have the different people who are now involved in it. So we could really talk about how this is supposed to happen. This is very different the way it's structured now.
Okay.
I just have a question about that, Patty, because somebody reached out, Doubleday's reached out, because they usually rent the Westchester County stage. That might not be the right name for it. And they said that they get booked up and they're having it on temporarily on hold, and it's available October 7th. They're wondering if there's been a date selected by the committee for Ferry Festa 2023.
We had, that's one of the kinds of, it's like, who's supposed to be doing that at this point?
Picking a date?
Well, even making the decision, come to the board and do it. I mean, I used to do that, but the structure of the board is different now. So, or the committee. So what I think we should do is have a workshop and kind of talk about what the vision, I've been told that the board now has a very different feeling towards the way the Festa should work.
Yeah, I don't
know where you got that
I
from.
don't know where that came from.
Not me.
So,
Well, the appointment includes the police chief, the DPW superintendent, the rec department. They never used to be part of the committee.
I think the thought was, since they could be there to give you answers rather than go back and forth, it would alleviate the situation.
I think
Look,
a workshop.
it's
would be
fine,
good.
we can do a workshop, it's not
Yeah.
a problem. Richard, just put it on your notes somewhere, we'll put it on for a workshop.
Okay, and just because I didn't take up 3 minutes, what James talked about is absolutely the case. I was involved in creating the MDR zones. They were not considered to be another version of the single family. It was probably my mistake that when we called the sliding scales, we referred to the residential zoning districts. We were talking about the OFs, not the multifamily. And what you're seeing right now at 34 is they have to increase their side yards, increase their rear yard, increase their front yard, which makes it a much more compact project, that they have to build something that looks much more like, as James said, an apartment house.
So we did receive emails from James, and I think maybe Mike can review it and give us his.
Yeah, I mean, I can look into how it's playing out. There is a certain logic behind that zoning code change that we're not going to debate here, but I will look at how it addresses this property and the other property.
That property you talked about, that 12 Clinton Avenue, that was absolutely brilliant. One at the corner?
Yes. Sure. I'm sure you agree with
Sure, I
you
think that, right. But it's,
So I'll look at it. I'll get back to everyone about it,
Okay.
because I honestly don't know. I don't know I don't.
Now the 3 minutes are up, Patty.
okay, so can I send you the white paper that I did on it?
You send me one.
Cool.
Okay, thank you. So let's move on to the resolutions. We have an action item to declare the snowplows and parking meter heads as surplus. We received a memo from Jennifer dated January 19th, 2023, explaining why they are, should be considered surplus. So is there a motion to authorize the village to declare certain village-owned property as surplus assets? Trustee Rosenberg, second. Trustee Sullivan, all in favor. That passes unanimously. Action item number 2 is to consider a resolution to engage the search firm for a new village administrator. So the village Board of Trustees interviewed a number of search firms who made a presentation to us detailing what their efforts would be to have the broadest range of search and the highest quality candidates. We interviewed both, We followed up with both of them, and we've made a decision on the firm that we're going to go with, and tonight we're going to move forward with that. And once we expect them to come here in person, and then we'll be able to lay out more of a time frame as this works, but it will involve, extensive interviews, placing ads, publicizing the village itself and why it's a great place to work and live. And I think our expected timeline is probably 3 to 4 months before we settle on a candidate. I shouldn't say settle on a candidate. We identify, address, and welcome a candidate. So is there a motion to authorize the interim village administrator to execute a professional services agreement with Strategic Government Resources for executive recruitment services leading to the identification of qualified candidates for the position of village administrator? Trustee Rosenberg, second. Trustee Rosen Asher, all in favor? That passes unanimously. Action item number 3 is to consider a resolution to allow the village administrator to sign an arrangement letter with BST Incorporation, CPAs. So we do have a memo dated January 17th regarding the authorization to sign a professional services agreement. So is there a motion to?
Can I ask a question?
Sure.
Is this the company that we've been using for audits in the past, or is this a new?
It's the same company.
Okay, then I have no more questions.
So is there a motion to authorize the village administrator to execute a professional services agreement with BST Corporation, CPAs, for auditing services for fiscal year ending May 31st, 2022? Trustee Patino, second. Trustee Sullivan, all in favor? That passes unanimously. Action item number 4. It was scheduled for a presentation as well as a public hearing, but we realized that a presentation was made before the planning board, and the planning board has already approved it. So we're going to just schedule a public hearing to consider the application for a site plan approval for a property at 10 Hamilton Avenue. So we're going to schedule that for, I believe, February 14th, right?
Valentine's Day.
Yeah, I know, right? Patty, it's Valentine's Day.
I think I'd rather be with my husband, but okay.
So
Well, we've got a meeting then anyway, so
Not for nothing.
bring your husband.
let's keep that calendar light, agenda light.
Please.
So
And chocolate, I expect chocolate.
I would like
Take cheese
flowers,
instead of
please.
chocolate, please.
So is there a resolution to,
No.
Unfortunately, yes. Are you sure? Wait, I don't have it on that day.
is there a resolution to schedule a public hearing to consider an application for site plan approval for property at 10 Hamilton Avenue on February 14th, 2023 at 6:30? Trustee Tino, second. Trustee Sullivan, all in favor?
I'm confused. I don't know if I'm in favor of that.
Yeah, I know, it is Valentine's Day.
So it's not every other, it's second and fourth.
Yeah.
I just need you to, I don't know if you're gonna be here or not, but I need you to vote on it. Again, I don't know if you're gonna be here, Shari, but I need you to vote.
And we don't tell
6-0.
And I will make the presentation that night.
Yeah.
Yeah, so we can, if there are comments,
Should we really do it?
Okay, is there a motion, wait, we have a presentation, I shouldn't say presentation. We have a memo regarding the need to approve a budget amendment for street light pole repairs as recommended by the DPW. So we have the memo, which is from Jennifer Dorman, which is dated January 19th, 2023, and she lays out the need for these poles to be replaced and the cost and the budget items that we have to do to address the issue. Are there any questions or comments about it before we vote on it? Okay, so is there a motion to approve a budget amendment for street light pole repairs as recommended by the Department of Public Works? Trustee Sullivan, second. Trustee Patino, all in favor? That passes unanimously. And is there a motion to approve the audit of claims as submitted and recommended by the village treasurer? We have it all laid out, we reviewed it, so is there a motion to approve that audit of claims? Trustee Patino, second. Trustee Rosen Asher, all in favor? That passes unanimously. Okay, trustee liaison reports. Jessica, do you have anything?
We had a great kickoff meeting to our new and improved downtown committee with 2 new co-chairs. We had a very active and engaged group who is ready to hit the ground running on topics like wayfinding and special events and recruiting businesses to come to downtown and working on marketing of the downtown and support of the downtown in general. That's fantastic.
That sounds good. Matt, do you have anything?
I don't yet, but I am pleased to say that tomorrow is the traffic committee meeting, and on Thursday is the Affordable Housing Task Force, so this is my week of evenings.
Cole?
The Youth Services Council with the school had hosted a speaker, Dr. Matthew Ellis, I think is how you say it. It was, I'd say there were probably like 20 or 30 adults that attended the adult portion, and I heard it was quite successful with the middle and high schoolers about, it was not really drug prevention as much as it was ways to get natural highs and do other things to feel good about yourself. So it was a different take on drug prevention. So it was interesting and good.
Shari?
The Human Rights and Diversity Committee put out nice pieces on the Lunar New Year. Happy Lunar New Year. It's also Holocaust Remembrance Day, and the Dobbs Ferry Library actually partnered up with the Harrison Library, so there's a presentation on Thursday night. The next the Diversity Committee meeting is Monday, and that's all I have.
Okay. Mike?
The CAB is going to have a meeting with the planning board so that those two groups can integrate a little more seamlessly on site plans that include large removals of trees. So there's, if people have noticed, there's a lot of work going on at Mercy College. That work, a lot of that work was approved by Irvington. So yes, there were a lot of tree removals. That was also part of an application from several years ago that required some other approvals. So they're now doing that. So a lot of that work that's being done is just not permitted through Dobbs Ferry, even though it seems like it could be. That's one issue. We've also just had a number of trees coming down without permits or with, not without notification. Both at the golf course and at some other residences. So again, I think that this is a building department and police department is going to meet with the CAB to just go over how the tree code gets enforced and what to do. When neighbors call, where does that go, and what the process is. So that's scheduled, I think, for the 31st here at Village Hall. The other item on their agenda is the High Street Park. So, a few years ago, they did a big cleanup effort there. They did a little bit of work, and then no maintenance or any other work was done. And anyone who's seen it lately, it's just immensely overgrown. It really looks terrible. And I'm going to bring this forward, but we'd like to designate that as a park, make sure it's designated as a park. We'd like to, they want to get a cleanup effort going again. So that'll be coming soon. The planning board, one of the things that I think we should be doing for the projects that we undertake is, not going to the planning board for approval per se, but sending it to them for their recommendations. There's a lot of knowledgeable, intelligent people on that board. So I'd like to take the school park plan and have a sort of brief workshop with the planning board so we can get some feedback, see if they have any good suggestions for us. How to save money, how to, streamline, design work. So, Richard, if you could, I think what would be nice would be to have Anthony, who I believe is at the meetings anyway for the planning board. Dan, you're there, right? Yeah. If we could just put it on for, some kind of brief presentation, let the planning board comment on it. And I think it's important that Anthony be there so that the questions they have, he can answer immediately. Why are you running it this way versus that way? So I'd like to see if we can get that on the next, I think planning board meets next Thursday. I'll reach out to Steve or don't know what the best process is, but does that have to be, does that have to be noticed, or can we just?
No, because it's not a required
Yeah.
approval, it's just a recommendation, and also Valerie.
Okay, so we'll get some feedback on the Gould Park plan.
Okay, sounds good. Okay, anything further? Okay, there being no further business, is there a motion to close tonight's meeting? Trustee Rosenberg, second trustee Gallen, all in
We
favor?
have to go to, we
I don't
close
have
it?
to- I don't have to do that. All in favor?